to our TV show, Happy Planet. It's a pleasure to see all of you today. Let me introduce you to my guest, Mr. Green. Well, the topic of the day is the happiness and the well-being at work and its measurements.
Good morning. First, thank you for inviting me. As Mrs. Jackie said, I am Mr. Green. I am actually doing researches on the ways to measure happiness and well-being at work. I am doing this program at the outstanding University of Minions in the USA, California.
Okay, let me present you the program of the day. We'll first talk briefly about sustainability and its objectives. Secondly, we're going to focus on a particular dimension of human resource management. Then, we'll finish by debating about the different indicators used to measure happiness and well-being at work.
Okay.
And if we are lucky, Mr. Green will share with us one of his secrets about one of his current research by revealing one new indicator that is working on.
Okay, let's go.
So as you can see, sustainability seems like a fashionable concept. Can you tell us more about it?
Of course. Well, the term sustainability is a concept which cannot be explained in a single definition. Indeed, different aspects characterize sustainability, and more precisely, sustainable HRM. Generally, we agree it takes into account several dimensions, such as the environmental, social, human, and the economic, all simultaneously. Then, I could add the long-term orientation of this philosophy, of course. Indeed, people allow outcomes to take a certain time, but clearly, it is worth it. Same way, company and community needs don't harm anymore the ability to meet the future wants.
Okay, so when we listen to you, we have the feeling that all these beliefs are in concert with the goal of the actual communities. For instance, are there any advantage to become sustainable in HRM?
Certainly. It's true that it's hard to devise it, but I'm going to explain how it could be beneficial. Like you already know, companies actually pay more attention on how to survive day to day rather than think about tomorrow's world. However, we can easily observe that human resources are capital for organization, and it is why attracting and retaining them with sustainable practices, of course, constitute a competitive advantage, even a survival strategy for companies which depend especially on high qualified employees.
I get it. But could you give some practical way to achieve this?
Well, one of the main objectives is attracting and retaining the best talents by becoming a first-choice employer. The most qualified are looking for a place which fits to their values, and sustainability represents these values. Secondly, once talent are attracted, the main issue remains to take care of the new recruits. Therefore, the next step is to keep employees healthy, and because they represent your business, they become more productive, so you can become more profitable. Besides, the more we take care of them, the less we have to worry about hiring. In fact, you're saving twice more money. Finally, the third principal objective, I would say, is to invest in skill, which consists in the development and training talent. Again, more you develop your resources, more you will benefit from them. To give you some example, I'd quote lifelong training, mentoring, also HR training and development programs, vocational training programs, or also career development for employees, of course.
Thank you for this precision. Now, our televiewers know more about this subject. And before talking about the famous measure of sustainability, could you explain why you mainly focused on well-being in your research?
Of course. Well, I noticed that to deal with the way to measure sustainability, I had to face a lot of field. I could not make all of them, so I had to make choices. Few days after, I learned more about France Telecom and practices of management. Indeed, it was very awful. I mean, the way they dealt with their employees really bothered me. They didn't understand that well-being is profitable and focused on wrong, pure economical indicators. Following this, I decided to concentrate on this branch because well-being can affect the organization as much as the workers, and that's very important.
So, Mr. Green, what are the main indicators used in the organization to talk about happiness at work?
Mrs. Jackie, first, I think that the most used indicator is the job satisfaction. Indeed, it appears in the literature review that all the indicators are linked and that they all related to this one. This concept is well defined because it doesn't only concern researchers studying organizations, but also anyone working in those firms. In addition, job satisfaction does not only affect the sphere of work, but also the health and anxiety.
You said that this term was well presented in the literature review. Do you know how many studies were conducted?
Well, I would say around 10,000 of studies, were made since 1930.
And what is the definition of job satisfaction?
Well, let me tell you that there is no unique definition and that an evolution of it is very remarkable. There are several authors who gave their own definition by starting by Locke in 1976, Adam and Bond in 2000, Patterson in 2010, etc. But if I have to choose one between all of them, it will probably be the definition of Adam and Bond, who define job satisfaction as the degree of positive affect toward a job or its component. I chose this one because it is recent and according to the authors, it is determined by the individual characteristics and work characteristics.
And are there factors influencing job satisfaction?
I'm happy you ask. Yes, I noticed that there are some factors that influence it. For instance, genetic, emotion, personality, are some of them.
And is that the only relevant indicators?
Of course not. In my analysis of the available literature on the subject, I noticed that the second most commonly used indicator is the organizational commitment. To be short and precise, within the business, organizational commitment is a factor that will determine whether a member is going to stay in business and if it will act with the aim of achieving the goals set by the company. To set this concept, today we use the three-dimensional model of organizational commitment of Allen and Mayer. These three-dimensional models are based on the thought that the organizational commitment comes in three different forms called affective, continuance, and normative commitment. In fact, the three components of commitment are reflecting a desire which represents the affective commitment, a need which implies the continuance commitment, and an obligation, the normative commitment to maintain employment in an organization. Do you see what I mean?
Actually, not that well. What does it mean concretely?
What I really mean is employees with strong affective commitment remain because they want to. Those with strong continuous commitment because they need to, and those with strong normative commitment because they feel they ought to do so.
Oh, okay. I understand now. I suppose there are other indicators that you haven't mentioned?
Let me see. Oh, yes. It's important not to forget the engagement as an indicator of happiness at work because it is an important aspect to consider when assessing the well-being at work. Let me give you a definition of this concept. In fact, it describes a harnessing of organization member selves to their work roles. In engagement, people employ and express themselves physically, cognitively, emotionally, and mentally during role performances. To be clear, the concept of engagement is defined in a variety of ways, but all agree on the fact that they keep the same meaning of what is the engagement work, basing on attitudes and behaviors of workers.
Okay. But then, what is the difference with organizational commitments?
Oh, do not confuse everything. Firstly, the engagement is about the work roles, and secondly, organizational commitment is about the organization itself.
Oh, okay. Understand now. Thank you. You don't talk about motivation, but it must be taken into account when we speak about happiness at work, isn't it?
Yes, of course, the motivation is one of the major elements entering the measure of happiness at work. In this case, one also speaks of the flow. I remember that one author gave a good explanation of what the flow is. He advanced the concept of flow in, I think, the 1970s as a state of mind during which people experience deep enjoyment, energetic focus, creativity also, and all these factors are intensely involved in an activity so that nothing else seems to be important. A prominent aspect of the flow experience is that besides the pleasure of doing the activity and the intrinsic interest to pursue it, there is an important aspect that we cannot ignore, which is the total immersion in the activity. I think that the key indicators were reviewed and that you have the information on the main indicators used in organization to measure happiness.
Oh, thank you for your very interesting testimony. It was a pleasure to have you with us. I think the audience has been very lucky and is eager to have your little secret.
Well, okay. I'm going to share my latest research on this subject. Currently, I'm trying to develop an indicator that will include all the criteria set in the indicators that we have mentioned earlier. Indeed, I believe there must be a single indicator that can cover almost all aspects influencing happiness at work.
That sounds interesting.
Indeed, it is.
Let us know about the results of your research when your indicators will be finished. Thank you for watching us. This was Happy Word on UCL TV with